Hello, so we've got all the wires we need to have pulled to where the electrical panel is going to be pulled through to there now. Not all the wires are here yet because some of the stuff will come along as the build carries on. But right now, everything that needs to be put inside the wall panels themselves has been done. Welcome to Van of Action, the build series. In this episode, we're talking about wiring. Step number 1, the rough in. And it's not near as rough as you might think. Come on along for the ride. This was a pretty intimidating part for me to start thinking about. But I watched some people just go overboard, in my opinion, on how much am I gonna, what's my load gonna be? What gauge wire do I need? How many amps am I gonna use? What's the startup push? How much was it gonna run at? I don't think that's all that necessary, to be honest with you. And at the end of the day, I realized, Dave, you're making this a lot more work than it needs to be. You've got two wiring systems. One's 12 volt. The 12 volt system is the same as you'd find in any car or trailer. The other is 120 volt, which is the same as you find in any house. So it really can't be that hard. Figure out where you want your 12 volt things, like the lights and the USB chargers, and plan on putting a wire there, and then figure out where you want your 120 volt things, like maybe plugs for computers or plugs for a hot plate or a hot water tank, and make sure you get wires there. And that's as hard as it is. Almost anything you want to run on 12 volts will run on a 16 gauge wire. You can go lighter if you want to. You can go much lighter, but 16 gauge will run your max air fans, it'll run your USB chargers, it'll run everything. You don't need 16 gauge, but going lighter than that, you don't save any money. It just becomes confusing on which wire's going where. The 120 volt system is 12 gauge wire. That's what they put in houses. Easily to figure out. 16 gauge for the 12 volt, 12 gauge for the 120 volt, nothing to it. But there are three basic rules to wiring. Number 1, buy stranded wire. You don't want solid wire because this vehicle is going to be vibrating as it goes down the road. This vehicle is going to be in freezing temperatures. Solid wire will expand and contract. The vibration is not good for it. Theoretically, it could break. I can't imagine it. It's going to be very rare, but it could break. And if it did break, it could be a real problem, both as a safety issue and then just as an issue of trying to repair it. Now, the 16 gauge stranded wire that I bought, you can buy it online if you want to. You can go to Amazon and get it, absolutely. But we chose not to do that. We went to our local automotive supply store. We bought 125 feet of this wire black, 125 feet of red on a spool. Probably paid a couple of dollars more than I had to at Amazon. But I'm helping one of my neighbors put food on their table, and I feel good about that. It's not that much of a difference in price. Easy to get. The 120 volt was even easier. This is a heavy-duty, construction-grade, 12-gauge extension cord. It was a 100-foot extension cord. Already came with plugs on each end, which is a bit of a bonus. And I watched this on the sales, and I bought this at Canadian Tire. I paid about $25 less for this than I would have for the same product from Amazon. So yes, that's not always the best deal. And, again, I'm helping one of my neighbors keep somebody employed, which I think is a good thing. Rule number 1, buy stranded wire. Rule number 2, you have to protect the wire as it passes through parts of the vehicle because this is a wire going through metal. There's going to be vibrations, there's going to be expansion and contraction. It's got to be protected. Now, when they do it in the factory, they run their wires in what they call a conduit. It's a plastic conduit. It's split the whole length, and you can put the wires in there and wrap them up nice and safe. This is a rural project. I'm not local to anything, and I didn't want to drive an hour one way and an hour back to buy a couple of feet of this stuff. So what I did was, and I thought, I haven't seen anyone else do it online, so this was our idea. I'm pretty comfortable with it. We used some of the leftover Nokia soundproofing wall panel, and I just cut it into strips, heated it up, and used it to protect as protection where the wire goes through. Wrapped it around 2 or 3 times. It works wonderful. And then you can actually even use it to fasten the wire to the side of the vehicle so it's not rattling around. I was really pleased with this. It's worked out really well. And I suppose every time we do this, we're adding a little more sound deadening to the side of the van as well, which is pretty good. Rule number 1, stranded wire. Rule number 2, protect it as it goes through the holes. And rule number 3 is when it comes time to sort all this wire out for the electrical panel, we have to know which wire goes where. Now you can buy a labeling machine if you want. I've seen a number of people do that. Pretty fancy stuff. What we did was use a roll of masking tape and a magic marker and a piece of paper. And we label, as we pulled the wires through, we labeled this end and we labeled the other end. And then we made up a really rough sketch. And on that sketch, we kept a little log of what each little symbol meant. So this little wire is labeled F1. That's the fan. That's the front fan. And if I come up to the front of the van, the wire at this end is labeled F1. Not rocket surgery here, folks, but it's important to know which is which. So stranded wire, protect the wire, and know which wire goes where. That's all there is to it. You're an expert. Well, we hope you're finding this useful because this isn't all that hard. It's fun to do. Come on back and visit again. We'll look forward to seeing you. Ta-da!